So why did the ancients go to so much trouble to build these megalithic monuments, do you think?
I think that astronomy is just one of the issues. And to think of them as astronomical observatories is a very limited view. And I've been working in this field for 50 years now. And I believe that the purpose of building these circles and other ancient monuments was to enhance the possibility of spiritual connection.
So why do you think, you know, in relation to what you just said, why do you think these sites have such a powerful effect on people?
Well, because they are built in beautiful areas, they are constructed with magnificent stonework, and they concentrate the energies that are there, and on specific days they really concentrate the energies, and we don't know what they were up to. And I think that mystery is what really brings people in. I mean, when you go to Avebury or someplace like that, what were they doing there? And I think that's one of the awe questions that really grabs you.
Do you think the people who built these sites, do you think they were leaving us a message for today?
I think the people who were building these sites were in the process of forgetting how to get in touch with the spiritual. As they moved closer and closer to the Greeks, they got more and more into their what we call the left brain, the analytical side, and the irrational side, which has got a pejorative connotation these days, was what they were working towards. And they built these sites because it helped them regain that spiritual connection.
How do you think that the people who built the sites actually constructed them?
Very carefully. Well, I've worked with a guy named Ivan Macbeth. I think you know Ivan. And we've moved some pretty big stones with just a few guys. And so I think that it is possible to move tons and tons of stones of a boulder if you do it right on rollers and rails and things of that nature. But I also suspect there was something akin to levitation going on as well. Bladewood was Geoffrey of Monmouth talked about Bladewood, who was out. I see him surfing on one of his standing stones when an eclipse came and he fell to his death. And so I think they were moving them. They get lighter when you do it right.
So do you think they had a more advanced technology than us regarding building these sites?
The term primitive savage, to me, means a culture that's more spiritually advanced than we are. And I think that they knew all kinds of things that we gave the Greeks credit for, but they knew them better than the Greeks did thousands of years before then.
Why do you think the stars, the sun and the moon were so important to the people who built these sites?
Well, it wasn't to know when to plant their seeds, even though it came with the revolution, the Neolithic revolution. It was to know when the energies were going to be at their hottest. At a place like Rollright, for example, where Paul Devereux did so much work, it isn't hot year-round. There are certain times of the year when it's really buzzing, and then other times of the year when the ultrasound, which is what his measurement stick was, died away. So it was to know when was the best time to get in touch.
And why do you think the sites were aligned over such vast distances with, like, you know, grids and ley lines and that kind of phenomenon?
I don't know. I have not focused on the big picture. I've focused on single sites. But they do seem to be aligned over a long distance, and the lays, which were Watkins' alignments of sites, do go quite a way.
Because in some of your research you talk about different variations on lays, like energy lays, and there's obviously things like telluric currents and classic earth energies. Can you just give us a quick outline of the difference?
When I first came over here, knowing what I'm into now, John Michel in the 70s told me, Sig, don't call these things that you're dowsing lays, because they're not lays. And he was absolutely correct. Sometimes a lay, which is an alignment of sacred sites, has energy flowing along it, and sometimes it doesn't. Energy lays, which is, I began to call these things that I was dowsing, which are 6 to 8 foot wide beams of yang energy that have a direction of flow, and cross like spokes on a wheel over power centers like Stonehenge or wherever. The problem comes with a term that I heard you use called ley lines. I don't know what a ley line is. And it's because when people use the term, I'm not sure whether they're talking about an alignment of sites, whether they're talking about the thing you douse, or assuming that they're both always the same. I did my master's work in New England, and there were all kinds of energy lays over there, and very few lays that we could find because, well, colonial man Europeans did real good jobs of getting rid of all that stuff.
You've been researching the sites in Holland and Scandinavia. How do these sites relate to other sites, like in England or other parts of the world?
Well, they're similar in some cases, and in others not particularly identical. For example, here we have stone rings, if you will, with various geometrical shapes of them, but they're essentially roughly circular, not exactly, although Brodgar is a circle, and the Mary Maidens is a circle, and Stonehenge is a circle, but most of them aren't true circles. But in Sweden, they're that shape. They're vesica-shaped, not Vesica Pisces, but vesica-shaped. And they're called ship settings. They're shaped like a Viking boat, if you will. So that's really different. And yet, on the other hand, like Silbury Hill, which is a truncated cone, they are over in Holland, and they're over in Sweden as well. Over here we have these things called dolmens or cromlechs. In the Netherlands there are a few of them, but many more hunebedden, which are giants' graves they're called, and they're series of these dolmens, series of perched rocks, long tunnels of them. So they're similar and yet different.
Why do you think academia and traditional archaeology doesn't accept the more esoteric and the more, I mean, even just the archaeoastronomy, for instance, why do they not accept these disciplines that have come about?
Listen, I went to school for 20 years to become a PhD in archaeology. And you're trying to tell me that these primitive savages knew about astronomy? You're trying to tell me that they knew about geometry before the Greeks invented it? It's really hard to get people to switch their paradigms. And some very brave folks have been working on getting that to happen. I'm not really interested in convincing them of anything. I'm not a researcher. I'm a seeker. I'm a pilgrim. And so I want to have the experience rather than I want to have both, actually. I want to have the rational information, and I want to have the experiential evidence of these sites. I call that gnowing, which is from Gnostic, but you got to say the G or you don't hear it. And it's both rational and intuitive, but valuing them equally, which is something that academicians don't always do, although the really good ones work that way a lot. Einstein was very intuitive, and others, eureka kind of moments. So they have difficulty accepting this. Also, the New Age, we're sitting in the capital of what used to be the New Age here in Glastonbury in the 1980s, mid-80s, when I first got here. And it's been given a bum rap. And so they don't want to have to accept all this weird stuff. And God doesn't move needles on demand.
I'm interested in the work you did some time ago in New England, because over there's obviously lots of megalithic sites. Can you just tell us a little bit about those sites and how important they are?
Well, I did my master's work on underground stone chambers.